All right, well, hello, Patreon podcast pals. Welcome back to another edition of Cards on the Table. And I am, of course, your host, John Stolnis, and we're going to be opening up another set of baseball cards here for you. We're going to open up some old cards and talk about the players that we see in there. And today we're going to be opening up a rack pack of 1988 score. Now, 1988 was not a great year for baseball card design, and this is the first year that the Score set came out. Score hadn't had anything before 1988, and they never really stepped up to the plate. They actually had a really good football edition. I think it was also in 88 or 89, but they were worth a lot of money because they didn't make many football cards. In 88, they mass-produced the heck out of these baseball cards, and the designs were okay. They weren't great. The thing you'll notice about these 88 scorecards is they were loaded with information on the back. I mean, they basically had a baseball reference page of statistics and news and notes, which that was pretty cool. That was fun. Those were fun to look at, but the card design themselves were not great, and it was kind of a bad year overall for baseball cards. This is when the industry really started to become saturated. I mean, 88 Donruss, you can still buy 88 Donruss packs for $1 a piece. They're still so available everywhere. Same thing with the 88 Tops. The 88 Tops design were okay. You also had 88 Fleer, which I actually really like the 88 Fleer design. Those were the white cards with the red and blue strips. We've opened them before here on Cards on the Table. But tonight we're going to do 1988 Score, which we haven't done any Score before. You know, the Score cards were never worth anything. But of course, you know, when we were growing up, we used to buy them because they were baseball cards. And at that point, this is the year before Upper Deck came out. With their first set. So you had Topps, Donruss, and Fleer for years and years and years and years, and then Score stepped up and stepped to the forefront and decided to start making baseball cards. They got a license with Major League Baseball, and then after that, Upper Deck did, and then it just got crazy. And then it got crazy. Everybody started making glossy cards and ultra cards and Stadium Club and all those different kinds of cards. This is when it started to get away from everybody. But we're going to open up our first rack pack here. I cut open the top with some scissors, and let's see who we get. Now, Score packs have no bubble gum. Remember, it's just Topps that has the old bubble gum, so we don't have to worry about, you know, that decision of whether or not to eat any of the gum inside these scorecards. What they do have, these are pretty cool. Great moments in baseball, and they are these little reflective things. And this says, Sportsman Park, October 15th, 1946. The Red Sox and Cardinals were tied at 3 games apiece when Game 7 of the 1946 World Series started at Sportsman Park. With the score tied 3-3 in the bottom of the 8th, Enos Slaughter, the hustling right fielder of the Cardinals, led off the inning with a single, and the next 2 batters popped up and flied out. On the first pitch to Harry Walker, Enos started running towards second. Walker lined the ball over short. Enos rounded second as the center fielder, Leon Culberson, fielded the hit and threw the relay throw to Johnny Pesky. The third base coach signaled Enos to stop at third, but without slowing up. He rounded the bag and dashed for home. Pesky took the ball, paused to look at second, then turned and weakly threw the ball home. Enos slid across the plate, easily safe with the winning run for the game and the World Series. So, pretty cool. I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know that little bit of baseball trivia, so those things are pretty cool. So let's see who we got in this pack of 88 Score. Start off with Tim Stoddard of the Yankees, longtime Oriole, Cub, Padre as well. Don't remember much about him. Lonnie Smith was a former Philly, played for the Phillies in 78, 79, 80, and 81. Had a very good season with the world champion 1980 Phillies. Hit .339 that season in 100 games. Had 298 at-bats. Was kind of a bench guy. But Lonnie Smith is one of the guys who is credited as being one of the integral parts of that 1980 World Series championship for the Phils. Here's a guy we all love to hate in the broadcast booth anyway, Harold Reynolds. Harold Reynolds was a heck of a baseball player, though. I mean, he was a pretty good offensive player. Check out Harold, and here's what I'm talking about. Look at all that information that they managed to get in there. I know it's hard to see, but I mean, just there's like 150 words here of information on Harold Reynolds, talking about his minor league days. Played in his first All-Star game in his first full season in the majors in '87. One of the finest second basemen in the league. He tied a major league mark in '86 with 12 assists in 1 game. So Harold Reynolds had a very good career with the Seattle Mariners. Here's another guy, Rupert Jones. Don't remember much about Rupert Jones, but we like Rupert Jones so much we decided to put 2 of him in the same pack back to back. Hate it when that happens. Now, of course, most of us have heard of this guy, the great Cal Ripken Jr., and at this point in his career, he'd only played that many seasons. So remember, Cal Ripken is obviously having played a very long time, but up to this point, he had played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 full seasons in the majors. And so a very, very young Cal Ripken Jr. here. That's great. He's a Hall of Famer. We'll put that one aside. Gerald Young. And you can see these cards are not really, the photographs are okay, but the design and the border are just kind of boring. The color of the borders don't reflect the actual team colors, and there's no team logo on here at all. You don't see any of that stuff till you turn it over on the back, and then you get the team logo and you get the team name and you get a little bit more about the player. But I would much rather see the team logo and the team name on the front as opposed to just one kind of monotone border going around the side. Now, it's just it was their first card design. Who knows how much time they had to kind of set these things up, but not wild about these designs. Here's a great pitcher, Dave Stewart, obviously a former Philly, pitched very little for the Phillies in 85 and 86 before the Phillies traded him to the A's, where he then became one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. Andy Allenson of the Cleveland Indians. Don't remember anything about Andy Allenson. Here's Doug Jones, a former Phillies closer, here with the Cleveland Indians long before he would ever join the Phillies. Roy Smalley. You got another Chicago White Sox here, Greg Walker. I like the numbers on the pants. They need to bring the numbers on the pants back. That was a good look back in those days. I used to have like 20 of this card. The great Fred McGriff, one of the great power hitters in baseball history. Borderline Hall of Famer. I know he didn't get in, but he's a guy who certainly you can make an argument for. My guess is one day, like Harold Baines, he gets in on the Veterans Committee. But Fred McGriff, this is before he joined the Braves, started his career with the Blue Jays. This is actually his rookie card. His rookie season was 1987 with the Blue Jays, hit 23 home runs and just 43 RBIs in 107 games. But Fred McGriff was a terrific player for the Blue Jays and for the Braves. The great Andre Dawson. The Hawk, Andre Dawson, and this was his MVP season in 1987 with the last place Chicago Cubs. Andre Dawson had 287 and led the majors with 49 home runs and 137 RBIs. Did you know that Andre Dawson, as great a power hitter as he was a multi-time Gold Glover? At this point in his career, he'd won 6 Gold Gloves from 1980 through 1985, 6 years in a row. Andre Dawson had won the Gold Glove. He had a cannon in right field. And so this was his MVP season the year after this card came out. Andre Dawson was a terrific player. And here's another terrific player, although tainted by steroids late in his career, Rafael Palmeiro. I guess this was his rookie card. Yeah, because there was an 88 Fleer that was his rookie card that he shared with Mark Grace. But obviously we know Rafael Palmeiro. This is the very beginning of his career. We know what happened with Rafael Palmeiro and steroids, but of course he went and had a long career and had put up a ton of numbers. Tom Brunansky, a very underrated power hitter. He had 32 home runs this season, check this out. I mean, from 1982 to 1987, Brunansky had 20, 28, 32, 27, 23, and 32 home runs at a time when there wasn't a lot of great power hitters putting up big numbers. That's some pretty doggone good consistency from Tom Brunansky, a big right-handed power guy for the Minnesota Twins. And then former Philly Bo Diaz, and Bo Diaz was with the Phillies from 1982 through 1985. Bo sadly, tragically died when he was putting up a satellite dish in his home. So really sad case of Bo Diaz there. Passed away way too young many years ago. We're going to open up the second batch of this rack pack here. Let's see what we got. And there's a special design. I spilled them all over the place. Special design here. These are part of their Young Superstar series. And unfortunately, Mike Aldretti never quite lived up to the hype. But Jim Fry, director of baseball operations for the Cubs, said, "Here's a real fine, natural hitter who's tough to strike out and hits the ball all over the park. At some point, Mike will become a starter because he's such a consistent hitter." Now, Jim Sorry, Jim Fry, that didn't work out. So another great moment in baseball history. This is Fenway Park, October 21st, 1975. This is, of course, the Carlton Fisk home run moment. We don't need to relive that moment, but we'll try and go through these cards a little bit faster here. You've got Candy Maldonado, who was a pretty good player for the Giants. Phil Bradley, future Philly. I mean, this was 1980. He had played with the Mariners from 83 to 87. I believe it was in 1988 that the Phillies acquired Phil Bradley as a free agent, where he sucked as a Philly, but he was a very good player for the Seattle Mariners for a number of years. Rick Rhoden. We've talked about Rick Rhoden on this show before. Pitched for the Dodgers and the Pirates for a long time before finally moving over to pitch for the Yankees. This guy just, man, they pitched so many innings back in the old days. 230 innings, 244, 238, 213, 253. I mean, my goodness, I don't know how those guys' arms didn't fall off. Here's Larry. Don't confuse me with Lance Parrish. Larry Parrish was a very good player also for a number of years. In 1987 here, hit 32 homers and knocked in 100 runs. So Larry Parrish had a good season for the Texas Rangers in 1987. Marvell Wynn, I always loved that name. Marvell Wynn always seemed like a very smooth player. I mean, look at this guy. Marvell Wynn is smooth. You just know he is. Here's another guy who always seemed pretty graceful and smooth out there, Mike Davis. And anytime you got a baseball player who's rocking out these glasses, he's got to be a favorite. He's got to be a favorite. Here is, again, the borders are just weird. These bright red borders are just, they're not great. Tom Brookins there. You have Ken Landreau of the Dodgers. Here's a guy who was a very integral part of those A's teams from 89 to 90. Carney Lansford was a perennial over 300 hitter for those three A's teams that won the American League West for 3 straight years. Really good, high batting average, third baseman for the A's. Big-time contact hitter, was a really valuable part of that team that had Jose Canseco and Walt Weiss, Mark McGuire, all those guys on that team. Here you have Mitch Webster, former Montreal Expo. Don't remember much about him. We've had Darryl Strawberry cards in the past, too. Here's another straw card. In this season, this is when he had his career year. 1987 was really his best season. Hit 38 home runs, 32 doubles, 104 RBIs, hit 284, played 154 games. That's the most games he'd ever played in his career. Everybody always talked about him being a potential Triple Crown guy. Obviously never got close to that, but Darryl Strawberry was obviously a mega superstar in the 1980s, and one of the great characters in the Simpsons baseball episode where they were screaming Darryl. It's obviously one of my all-time favorites. Here's Dave Smith. I mean, when you see Dave Smith, you think athlete. That's what I think of when I see Dave Smith. Here's Rich Yet, not Yeti, Rich Yet, and Rich Yet looks very happy with himself. Rich Yet's a happy man. He's playing Major League Baseball, and he knows he's doing good. Bobby Wine Jr., who doesn't look old enough to buy alcohol, but there he is, Bobby Wine Jr. Rookie prospect Jeff Treadway. It didn't work out for Jeff. And 1987 highlights Benito Santiago, a future Philly. Benny was the National League Rookie of the Year in 1987, where he had a very long hitting streak that season. 39-game hitting streak earlier in the season. So Benny Santiago, and he had a great season for the Phillies. I think it was in 96 he played for Philadelphia and really had a great season. And then catcher Jody Davis. So we got one more of these little packs to open up. Again, the best thing to do is to open these guys up with scissors. So let's open up. See if we can keep from dropping these all on the floor. And let's see if we got another one of our little holograms. We do. Great moment in baseball. What's this one? Yankee Stadium, 1955. Amaro's catch saves the series. The Brooklyn Dodgers had played in 7 World Series and lost them all, including the last 5 to the Yankees when the 7th game of the 1955 series started at Yankee Stadium. The Yankees and the Dodgers were tied at 3 games apiece, and Johnny Padres, a 23-year-old southpaw, was on the mound for Brooklyn. The Dodgers scored a run in the 4th inning and another in the 6th to lead 2-0. In the bottom of the 6th, Sandy Amaros, a speedy left-handed reserve, took over left field for the Dodgers. With 1 out and 2 men on, Yogi Berra sliced the ball down the left field foul line. Amoros, who was playing towards center for the left-handed hitting Berra, raced toward the foul line, stuck out his glove, and made a seemingly impossible catch just inside fair territory. He then threw into the infield for a double play on the runner at first. Padres held the Yankees scoreless the rest of the way, and the Dodgers finally had their first World Championship. Those are cool. I like those. All right. Current Nationals manager Dave Martinez pops up first here in that pack. Joe Niekro, one half of the battling Niekro brothers. Again, these Niekros, man, they just pitched for a long time. It was in the genes. Dave Meads. Nope. Man, Dave's mustache was on point here in 1988. Here is a future Philly and a guy who was one of the great players in those 90 to 92 Pittsburgh Pirates, Andy Van Slyke. He played for the Cardinals for a number of years before that. He really blossomed once he got to Pittsburgh. He was a very, very good player for them. When he came to the Phillies, he was pretty much washed up by that point. Andy Van Slyke didn't have anything left. The Phillies specialized in the 90s getting washed up players who used to be good in the 80s. That just seemed to be their thing. Sid Fernandez, Fernando Valenzuela. There are many others that they brought on board that were really good at one time, and by the time the Phillies got a hold of them, their careers were pretty much washed up. It's just how the Phillies have pretty much always operated. You've got Len Matuzek of the Dodgers. Len Matuzek was a former Philly, played for the Phillies in 1983 on their pennant-winning team. Actually, from 81 to 84, Len Matuzek bounced back and forth between the Phillies and their minor league teams in Oklahoma City and Portland and Reading. So he was up and down with the Phillies, but was part of that 83 team and has a World Series ring with the Phillies. Donnell Nixon of the Seattle Mariners. Here you have Jim Clancy of the Blue Jays. John Franco, great pitcher, great closer, was the Reds closer for a number of years. Was a big saves guy for a bunch of different seasons. He was a very good player. Darnell Coles of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Here we have our first Philly, and it's a good one. Ron Roenicke. And here's what they say about Ron Roenicke here. Ron was an ideal 24th man for the Phillies in 1987, a switch-hitting handyman who played all three outfield positions in addition to pinch-hitting duties. He's also an excellent bunter and led the Phil's non-pitchers in sacrifices in 1986 with 4. Something to hang your hat on there, Ron. Originally drafted by Oakland in 1974, he's played with 5 teams in parts of 7 Major League seasons. He led the Dodgers with 13 pinch hits in 82 and appeared in the 84 World Series with the Padres. Ron is the younger brother of the Braves' Gary Roenicke. That is a lot more information than you ever wanted to know about Ron Roenicke, but anytime we get a Philly, we have to feature it. I don't remember a thing about Ron Roenicke, by the way. Here's Ken Schramm of the Indians. Mike Boddicker was a good right-handed pitcher for the Orioles for a number of years. Here you have Alan Ashby of the Houston Astros. A couple more here. Rick Honeycutt of the Dodgers and the A's. Rick Honeycutt was a very good pitcher for a number of years as well. Greg Swindell, power left-handed arm. Everybody thought he was going to be a true stud. And he had a pretty good career, but it didn't turn out exactly as good as people were hoping for. Here's Dave Anderson, infielder for shortstop for the Dodgers. And last but not least, Steve Lombardozzi of the Minnesota Twins. So that's our 1988 score rack pack. Not a great one, but we did get some good ones. We got Ron Roenicke, we got Darryl Strawberry, we got Rafael Palmeiro, we got Andre Dawson, we got Fred McGriff, we got Dave Stewart, Cal Ripken. You know, not bad. So that's what we're going to go with here. Only one Philly, unfortunately. And hopefully we will get some more cards for you and do this again here very soon. If there's any packs, any kinds of cards you'd like me to open, please let me know. I'm going to try and get some cards that are a little bit newer, so maybe we can talk about a different cast of characters, a different group of players. Although I do love opening these 1980s cards, man. The 80s and early 90s cards, they're my thing. That's what I was cutting my teeth on. That's what I grew up on. So I love these, going back and visiting these old designs. Unfortunately, not a big fan of the 1988 score design. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of Cards on the Table. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I hope this was a little bit of a distraction as you are dealing with staying indoors all day. I know it's not as exciting as watching an old Phillies game, but hopefully taking a few minutes to look at some old baseball cards with me and talk about some old players was worth your time. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Talk to you next time here on Cards on the Table.